You are looking good. You who are 3 steps above average. I'm Kendall Bryan Hunter. I'm author of this book. Consider My Servant Job. It's a commentary, a spiritual commentary. Not quite a devotional, but you ever were confused about the book of Job in the Old Testament? I talk about that. Hopefully, after you buy my book, you'll have a sense of calm and peace when you read the book of Job. You'll feel better about things and have a added insight into life's difficulties. Of course, the way the world's going, we all need added understanding about life's difficulties. And this is my podcast, broadcast, YouTube, whatever you call it, The Eyes of Faith. And today's theme is Confusocracy. 1 screen, 2 movies. But first, breaking news. The passing of, I don't know how to categorize him, cartoonist, internet pundit, YouTuber, Scott Raymond Adams. Last Tuesday, he passed away after having a very lingering battle with prostate cancer. I'll talk about him a little bit in the e-chapel, the e-devotional at the end of this. But for right now, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the highlight of human civilization. It's called The Eyes of Faith, or Coffee with Scott Adams. And you've never had a better time. But if you'd like to take this experience up to levels that nobody can understand with their tiny, shiny human brains, all you need for that is a cup or mug or a glass, a tankard, chalice or stein, a canteen jug or flask, a vessel of any kind. Fill it with your favorite liquid. Scott liked coffee. I hold a current Telper recommend, so I'll use water. And join me now for the unparalleled pleasure. It's the dopamine hit of the day. It's the thing that makes everything better. It's called the simultaneous sip, and it happens now. Go. They've been trying to keep his podcast, his channel alive, and they've been doing this. And it gets a little bit eerily close to communion, sacrament of the Lord's Supper for me. But that's my farewell salute to him. I based some of my approach to podcasting on how he was doing things when I started out years ago. So, like I said, more later on. Lead story, 1 screen, 2 movies. And this is about what's going on in Minneapolis, Minnesota, with the hitting of the ICE officer and the tragic shooting death of Renee Good. And this illustrates something that Scott Adams talks about, and we've all felt this. You know, you've all seen this and felt this. It's like, why can't you see reason? It's just plain. It's right there. You saw it, and it's the 1 screen, 2 movies effect, where you've gone to a movie, you come back and said, "Oh, I really like that movie," and your friend who you go out with, or your spouse or whatever, says, "Oh, I just absolutely hated the movie." Well, we're looking at the same movie. What's the difference? And we see the same thing going on here with the events with the shooting, and also the broader approach to what's going on in Minneapolis, the Somali fraud, the crime, the political corruption, the business model that the Somalis used, and how it was used to money launder politicians. So President Trump, someone on his White House team, did a clip up on social media on X. And this is what it said. Instead of facts, the media pushes shameless propaganda, and that's why Americans don't trust them. Watch for yourself. And it's a clip. You'll see the cell phone footage from the officer interspersed with pundits denying that he got hit. Well, he didn't get hit. Here's a clip. He didn't get hit. Let's not rush. This is probably, and it's a contrast. Once again, it's 1 screen, 2 movies. Robert P. Reich, as Rush Limbaugh used to call him. He was, what was he, some sort of economics, I can't remember what it is, with the Clinton administration. This he posted on Blue Sky. It's good to remember what's going on these other sites. They'll complain about how radicalized X is. We'll go to Mastodon or Blue Sky, which tends to lean left, and read what's going on there. Renee Nicole Good was murdered. Marimar Martinez was shot. Mahmoud Khalil was arrested and jailed. The next could be you. What's at stake isn't just American democracy, it's also your safety and security, and that's and that of your loved ones. This is personal to every one of us. So that's what Robert P. Reich posted. Now notice what he's doing is he's talking about abuses of police power, and that's a legitimate concern. You should always speak up about that. But notice what he's not talking about. What's off his radar? The Somali fraud machine. He's not talking about that. Millions, possibly billions of dollars leaving this country. 6, 7, 8, 10 daycare centers with no children there. Poor people on welfare, but they have all these daycare centers. If they're out working, why do they need the daycare centers? This is a Sierra Cup I pulled over from Boy Scouts. I just kind of like them. But now another thing that he's using is, one, the obvious scare tactic. Shot, killed, arrested and jailed, murdered. What's not, it could also be you, the next could be you. Is that true? They're not paratrooping stormtroopers in here kicking doors in. There's not an infinite number of ICE officers following everyone around. That's an obvious scare tactic. It's a shameless scare tactic. And since you're 3 steps above average, you probably saw it before I did. But also another thing to me, he's using what's called list persuasion. And what list persuasion is you stack things up together in a list. So you have something that you agree about, 3 things that you agree about, and you put a 4th one in there. And you may be uncertain about it, but since you have the momentum of persuasion there, you just tend to agree with it. Like I said, that's a tactic, list persuasion. Keep that in your toolkit there, because it's going to come in handy when people use it. When they start talking about historical events, these people were killed, and you're the next one. Then another clip, you've probably seen this too on X, because you're 3 steps above average. Obama on illegal immigration, and it's the same thing. We need to do. And you've been seeing clips from Hillary Clinton, Nancy Pelosi, President Obama, saying, "Hey, we need to get this illegal immigration under control." Once Trump's in office, it's just they flip the switch. It's this weird compartmentalizing. Well, we need to get this illegal immigration under control. Abuse of power. Now, there's this X thread. So I want to caution, this is a little too on the nose. It fits the narrative perfectly, and I'm not sure if this is a parody site or not. So I have this disclaimer. I looked into it. It looks like this is just someone who's a real critic of Elon Musk, because he has the whole Nazi salute thing, and that's actually another thing. You see these compilation clips about it. So CBS News on X reported, breaking, the ICE agent who fatally shot Renee Good on January 7th in Minneapolis, Jonathan Ross, put him on the prayer roll. I'm confident you're going to do that. Jonathan Ross suffered internal bleeding to the torso following the incident, according to 2 U.S. officials briefed on his medical condition. Then Elon Musk, they have community notes on Elon Musk, and he gets fact-checked. Elon Musk responded, "She almost killed him." Then Harry Eccles, at HECCLES 94, so that may be his birth date. Harry Eccles responds to this on Elon Musk, and that's what the clip I had at the beginning said. Medically speaking, you cannot get internal bleeding from pretending to have been hit by a car. Medically speaking, you cannot get internal bleeding from pretending to be hit by a car. My response to that is I got the screen capture, and this is actually someone else who's very critical. This is from Eric Schneider, the Snide Remarks guy, who's a church employee and very, very critical of Trump. Well, since I'm all for free speech, keep posting. You're giving me good material for this podcast, Eric. And I responded to this, touché. Touché, that's how you respond to that one-word answer, touché. And I wrote this. The reason why the ICE officer was suffering internal bleeding was because he was, in fact, hit by Renee Good's auto. This means the shooting was justified. But notice 2 things. 1, the one screen, 2 movies effect. We're all looking at the Renee Good ICE interaction and seeing opposite things. Is reality fundamentally an optical illusion? Or in this tragedy, is there any sanity? Is this where we're seeing an optical illusion, the red dress, blue dress? You've heard that from a couple of years ago before pre-pandemic. Second thing, The irrelevance of evidence. Notice the science denial. The officer was medically examined, had internal bleeding, which means he was, in fact, hit. Instead of admitting he was wrong, Eccles reinforces the left's narrative that he was not hit. Medical science means nothing. Just keep the narrative alive. This is deadly to Renee Good, tragically, to the ICE officer, potentially, and to people everywhere, definitely. Drive, baby, drive, yeah. This will drive America off the cliff. And the expression, irrelevance of evidence, here's something, after you buy my book, and you're going to feel great after you get this, this is another book that'll make you feel good and open up your mind to things, called The Vision of the Anointed by Thomas Sowell, the economist with the the Hoover Institute, not Harvard, but Hoover Institute at Stanford University. And, oh, look, son of a gun. Look at that, Chapter 4, The Irrelevance of Evidence. Isn't that just what happened? Okay, this is unjustified because the officer was not hit. This was justified because he was hit. This cell phone video, this video is ambiguous. He went to the doctor, had internal bleeding, hard scientific evidence. Ignore it and just keep talking. And that's another tactic people use. Add that to your tactic list. They lose the argument, they just keep talking as if they had won the argument. And sometimes that actually works. But what's true? What's real? Which narrative corresponds to reality? Bill Maher talked about this, and I keep on playing this clip about the one true opinion. I played it last week, and keep it up, bookmark that one. One of the things that bothers him is that people on the left have this one true narrative, and if you deviate that, they'll get really mean with you to keep you on the reservation, or keep you on the narrative. Excuse me, the reservation, that's not a good term, and I apologize for saying that. Why doesn't the left need censorship? Well, the left needs censorship to build community. To have community, you need to have one true message, one overarching and undergirding, coherent outlook on life. And so you have the left message, but the opportunity cost of that is choice or opposition in all things. In order to build community, they'll hammer down on the one true message. But what they're losing to build community around this narrative, noble lies, what Plato called it. Plato described it as republic. Just have whatever you're out there to keep society together. You use that message, and you have to censor other messages. Plato was for censorship. Yeah, go read the Republic. Now, like I said, what the trade-off is, we're all do not have infinite knowledge, and so we need to interact with other people. People have different specialties. There's languages that you do not speak. There's information that you don't know, and you have to rely upon other people to give you the correct information, or chatbots. Chatbots will give you some hallucinations. That's a good word to add to your vocabulary. This is what Joseph Smith said. Joseph Smith, History of the Church, Volume 6, page 248. By proving contrarieties, truth is manifest. Now, he's using the word prove by testing, like a proving ground. That sense in that you test something, that you offer proof, or you take something to a proving ground, or even with baking when you have a proofing box. By proving contrarieties, truth is manifest. So by testing or verifying opposite statements, you find the truth. A little bit like Hegel's dialectic. Now, this was abused during the communists, but sometimes it's a good principle. I was just abused. Kind of like eating and overeating. Good principle, but you can be abused. By proving contrarieties, that is having free discussion in the clash and grinding and give and take of dialogue, that's where you get truth from. And censorship blocks that. Censorship is anti-truth, anti-reality, just all narrative. And that was going on during the pandemic when you had shadow banning on Twitter. That's what took Parler down. I'm a big supporter of Parler, and I've been able to reactivate my account. I look at my friends that I was following on Parler, and they're not back on again, and it's very tragic. I lost some community and some relationships because of that censorship. Parler was a scapegoat. So that's the main story. Let's go to news blips. I've sort of talked about this. Just the News reported Tuesday that the Transportation Security Administration detected to flag nearly $700 million in cash moved in luggage out of the Minneapolis airport by Somali couriers in 2024 and 2025 alone. A stunning total that averaged nearly $1 million a day. 1 million a day. Okay, this is what was going on. And you saw Nick Shirley talk about it in his second video. He interviewed the guy whose face was blurred out. That these Somalis, what they do is they'd milk the... Now, pay attention to the business model, the economic model. So the government, connect the dots here on this, put the Legos together. That they defraud the government, so it'd go to their bank accounts, they'd hit the ATMs and get out all this money. Now, how you could get all that money out of an ATM, that kind of... I don't know what the capacity of an ATM is, but if you do it in smaller increments, you can make it work if you're sly about it. Plus, remember the narrative. They're black, they're immigrants, they're untouchable. That's part of what it is that people who buy into that narrative and who are wrong about human nature only think the only evil people are white men who buy into that narrative. They're not going to mess with this. But it was $1 million a day, $700 million in cash. Now, everyone knew what was going on. Yeah, government tracks those things. That's why people use cryptocurrency. Because, government can't track crypto. But everyone knew it was going on. They didn't do anything about it. And what's the trade-off? Being naive about human nature and what's going on. It's the debt, the deficit spending, and inflation. Debt, deficit spending, and inflation are all interconnected. We're printing all this money that's going to Somalia. And think of what it does to Somalia, where we're stifling, the creative people. They're getting handouts instead of actually working. Now, I understand there's a political structure involved. You understand the legal system and the cultural norms. But that's not a good thing. That's paying someone who's a genius just to lie in bed all day. Sort of the Brian Wilson model, lying in bed like Brian Wilson. Next news blip. I'm going to savor this. Let me dig this. Where is it? I'm going to pause. I need to get some props for this. Let me pause this for a moment. I'm back. Kathleen Kennedy steps down at Lucasfilm. The Critical Drinker, who's someone I follow, language alert with him. Some of these people use adult language, so if that offends you, turn it off, but I follow him. Critical Drinker, he's a movie reviewer, said this: not many people could destroy 3 different franchises in less than 10 years, but this woman managed it. Proof that you really can do anything if you put your mind to it. So there's a temptation. Ding dong, the witch is dead. Took you long enough to quit. The universe is a worse place because you existed. But I want to keep this positive because she's a neighbor you're supposed to love. And this is sort of a mini devotional right now. This is the thermos I had as a kid in 1977 from the Star Wars lunchbox. Vintage. You kind of look how dirty that is. We lost there's a yellow cup on top. Childhood. Empire came out. Absolutely crazy about Yoda. Wisdom. That's something you should look for. The Bible talks about in the book of Proverbs, wisdom. That's why we love Yoda. He was a wise person. And when episode 2 came out, that little frog floating around. But not only that, I have a Bachelor of Arts in History. Okay, this is Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. This is no longer the worst Indiana Jones movie ever made. Although I do recommend reading these novels because they have deleted scenes, and this novel actually makes the story a lot better. So if you didn't like it, I'd give the novel a read. But you messed this up, and you screwed it up, Kathleen. You made it, and you had your agenda. It's one screen, 2 movies again. You part of that semi-pun. Um, Over the course of 10 years, just this constant barrage. Focusing on Ray, focusing on Phoebe, the bait and switch. This whole forces female sexism, and let's put this on the table. It is sexism, and you're 3 steps above average, and you knew that was sexism. But behind that's the contempt for men, the force for female. You look this up on social media. Let me see if I can find it. There's this promotional letter that before Star Wars. It was just Star Wars when I was a kid, not none of this Episode 4 stuff. But there's this promotional letter, and it's interesting because it. Okay, so it looks like. So it looks like this. So you'll track this down the internet, and it looks like that, and then read it. But pay attention to the top. It has this quote from Arthur Conan Doyle. Arthur Conan Doyle is the author of Sherlock Holmes, of course, but he wrote this story called The Lost World. So Michael Crichton took the name The Lost World, but what is about people going to this place where dinosaurs are still around, by Arthur Conan Doyle. Fun book. It's a little bit more, kind of has the steampunk sensibilities that you may like, steampunk. But it has this quote that Arthur Conan Doyle, and it begins, "I've wrought my simple plan. If I give 1 hour of joy to the boy who's half a man, or the man who's half a boy." There's a masculine flavor to it. It's a male audience, and it's good because as a man, look at things we're taught with 3 main characters. Well, so when you have Luke, who's the naive idealist, but he's the chosen one, that overused term now. He has to rescue the princess. So men are being taught to help ladies out, to be courteous towards women, to have respect towards women. He's forced to make it. He has a mentor, Ben Kenobi. And they have to go and have to make a deal with somebody who's a little bit unsavory, Han Solo and Chewbacca. At the end of it, Han Solo gets redeemed. He's no longer a scoundrel. He's an idealist. He becomes part of it. The one good thing from the sequel trilogy is, the Force, Jedi, that's all real, what he says. He becomes a converted idealist. That's a good message for men. Finding a mentor, Ben Kenobi. After that, goes from Ben Kenobi, he goes and finds Yoda, wisdom. This teaches men to seek out wisdom and get training, to finding a mentor. That's healthy message for men. And by the end of, especially with have to Rian Johnson. Sorry, it's just bad taste on my tongue. That just completely destroyed it. But keep in mind is what's going behind this. The force is female. The rhetoric about toxic masculinity, and I'll admit that crime rates are higher among men, but reported crime rates. There's a way that women are toxic. That's never discussed. Double standard again. 1 screen, 2 movies. But I think the part about women are feminist and women being taught contempt for men, envy for men, that we're the oppressors, this Marxist model. And once you think about Renee Good, how being an active feminist, she was taught to have contempt for men. So when a male officer orders her to stop, she just ignores him because she has contempt for men. And it just ended tragically for both of them. This contempt for men that Kathleen Kennedy purveyed, the bait and switch. I want to see about Luke Skywalker. Nope, couldn't get the 3 together. They got that for Star Trek. They got the Next Generation. They got them together, and also for the original series. They were able to bring the crew back together for a fun adventure. Couldn't do that with Star Wars. Luke Skywalker tossing the lightsaber over his shoulder was wrenching, and I had some critical words from Mark Hamill, but I do admit his integrity by distancing himself from this artistic choice to make Luke Skywalker a loser. This leads into my next point. Lucasfilm is owned by Disney. Disney also owns Star Wars, it owns Indiana Jones. It also owns the MCU. Star Trek is owned by Skydance Paramount. Now, I own stock in both those companies. I am a shareholder. So not only can I make a fair comment about what's going on with these companies as my standing as a shareholder, just remind these companies you have a legal obligation to act in my best interest. You're screwing up the MCU, you're screwing up Indiana Jones, you screwed up Star Wars, and you're screwing up Star Trek. And it's costing me. And I'm going to vote accordingly. Every time these notices come out for voting for as a shareholder, you're going to feel it when I vote. And I'm going to encourage everyone else who's a shareholder, and I'm going to vote that way. And I'm going to talk to people, hey, look, you don't like this, you don't like what Star Trek, Star Wars, what's going on there, buy stock in the company and let your voice be heard. We could get a block of people to buy stock, and we could get these companies back on track with where they're going. So let me skip. We're at half an hour. Let's cut this a little bit short. Culture comment. Back with the ICE shootings. President N. Eldon Tanner, he was a member of the first presidency. I can't remember if I quoted this last week. It just bears repeating. He said this. Some causes of delinquent troubles are he was talking about juvenile delinquency back in 1965. I'd love it 1965 with the MRIs, cell phones, but at least they're doing good stuff. Some causes of juvenile delinquency are disregard for the law in the home, lack of discipline in the home, example of adults, express sympathy for the criminals and criticism of the police, and last but not least, failure to accept Christ as a savior of the world and failure to keep the laws of God. Joseph F. Smith, there's a deplorable tendency among people of this nation to sympathize with murderers, bank defaulters, evil adventurers, and 100 other classes of criminals who are at large, who have been arrested, convicted for breaking the law. This sympathy for criminals is entirely abnormal and has a tendency to lower and destroy the moral sentiment of any people who indulge in it. For a Latter-day Saint, to sympathize either with crime or with criminals is a burning shame. It is high time that the teachers of the community should stem such tendency and inculcate a sentiment that would make it extremely abhorrent to commit crime. See, it's not just contempt for men, but it's normalizing crime that, yeah, it's okay to commit fraud. If you're a protected class among the left, the intersectionality class, another buzzword, it's okay, we'll give you a pass on crime and just make all the white males pay for everything. Gordon B. Hinckley, I believe that God will not hold men and women in uniform responsible as agents of their government in carrying forward that which they are legally obligated to do. It may even be that he will hold us responsible if we try to impede or hedge up the way of those who are involved in a contest with the forces of evil and repression. I think I may have quoted that last week, but bears repeating, especially President Hinckley. You interfere with people, you're going to be held accountable. He says, he does the conditional. So, philosophic point. Think about this. The left always talks compassion, and they have lofty ideals. But cities that are run by Democrats have low scores in education, highest crime rate, highest welfare. And they're very bifurcated. There's an overclass and an underclass. Just look at San Francisco or Oakland. With Oakland, the downhill and the uphill. But if Democrats have all these lofty ideals, why don't the numbers bear it out? What's the disconnect, this juncture? They want to do good, but it just doesn't happen. Part of it has to do with the emotional motivation. They want to feel good about themselves and their lofty ideals. That's why they espouse them. It would be good if you always want to help all races out. You want to be a welcoming person. But part of this is narcissism. A number of years ago, Hillsdale College published this talk in the Imprimis magazine. I recommend subscribing to it. I have a copy. So Imprimis looks like this, and Gordon B. Hinckley quoted from it. So that should give you a clue. That's a good magazine. But it's called The Case Against Liberal Compassion by William Vogeli, Voegeli, William Vogeli. And he talks about this. He says, look, you always ask, okay, when's enough? What's the cutoff point? Well, it never is. I just want to get the buzz and the jolt and the feeling of smugness that they're actually doing something. And it creates a problem because it hurts innocent bystanders. You want to feel good about yourself, but you're not. You're doing it for your own vanity. This doesn't actually help people. It really doesn't. You just look at what happened when we allowed the Somalis to take care of us, and there's a racial element to it. I disavow any racist treatments. I have relatives from various races, friends from various races. Some of them are better educated than I am, wealthier than I am, and I cheers to you for being more successful and better educated than I am, and I support you, whatever race you are, whatever creed or faith you are. I'm at least supportive of you, because if I'm a schlub, then it's my fault. I need to accept responsibility. So here we are at the half an hour and at the e-chapel, the devotional section. So talking about Scott Adams. Here's my interaction with him. I came home from college, first semester at college in 1989, and picked up the home newspaper, the Alameda Times-Star, and that's where I first saw a Dilbert comic, and it sort of stuck with me for some reason. I can't explain why. I was very bare-boned, not like the Family Circus or Dennis the Menace or Sally Forth or Calvin and Hobbes. Calvin and Hobbes is like Poe. It's its own, so artistic. It's just wonderful, and it was a loss we have. Read those. Those are very good comics. They stand the test of time. But, doing it so skeletal and bare-boned, it reflected the bleakness of cubicle life and the bleakness of what was going on. Of course, it was satirical and a commentary on on this type of lifestyle. That's how he made it. But the medium was the message. The bleakness and the skeletal drawing, that reinforced things. Of course, it expanded with all the imaginary characters and the anthropomorphic animals and such. He did have some fun with it. It sort of defies genre. I mean, you really don't have talking animals and Sally Forth or Family Circus. You don't have dragons or who's that Princess Semi-Darkness. So I saw that. Now, my next intersection would be in the 1990s. That was the peak Dilbert, and the books were coming out. And he had a website where he was publishing his comics online. I think he was the first person to do it, or at least one of the first. But apparently he really pushed for it, and people would print it out, and they'd repost the comics. But he had this funny website that would evolve over time, and you can go to Wayback Machine and see earlier incarnations of it. But he had polls where he'd act stuff, get people interactive with it, building up a community. They had this one thing that was a panic button where you can move a cursor up to the top of the page and you tap it, and suddenly there would be a spreadsheet appear on your page. And what the idea was that if you're goofing off at work, your boss is coming around poking your head, you tap on that so it looked like you have the spreadsheet come up so it looked like you were really working. The mission statement generator, the gobbledygook. They also later on he had different blog posts, and like I said, they're on Wayback Machine, and track them down if you can. He had cannibalized some of the stuff he was writing for his books. So, it was cut and paste, but everyone does that. But it's interesting he'd keep this blog up and maintain it, and then that later evolved into Coffee with Scott Adams, which is my third intersection. Around 2015, 2016, I was on X and scrolling around, and it popped up, so I just started watching him. And so I paid attention to him for a couple of years. I dropped off. I don't know. That's what I'm doing right now. Came up as remind me to film, which I'm doing right now. So I'd watch the periscopes and the broadcast on X. I dropped away for a bit, and this is actually healthy. Is when you have a mentor, someone you follow, it's healthy to step away from your own opinions and stuff. And then later I came back to him. and started following him regularly, especially this is like pre-pandemic, and he's one of the people who carried me through the pandemic. I started getting his nonfiction books. I didn't remember reading The Dilbert Principle and The Dilbert Future. My parents got it, so I happened to read it when I happened to be home. Later I got Win Bigly. Now it's interesting, Loser Think. If you read Loser Think, he at the beginning, he does something. He says, he gives you permission to take pictures of these things. Well, when Win Bigly came out, so I don't want to overclaim this, but this was something I was doing. I was actually taking pictures of it and posting it on social media, and explaining Donald Trump, why Donald Trump is so persuasive, and so that may have influenced him. I got two response to tweets on X. One is when I read the book God's Debris. You have a picture of me wearing the professor hat back when I was doing silly stuff. This stuff you do when you start out, and then you get your head on straight. You start being a little bit normal. So a lot has been said about his conversion. Now, for most of his life, Scott Adams was you call him a social liberal, fiscal conservative. But just over time, he started getting nudged to the right, and it's interesting watching people do that. Of course, people go the other way. Probably the most famous person is Hillary Clinton. She was conservative and then got radicalized at Yale. But as I commented last week, there's several articles about Scott Adams. He doesn't use this term, but as he was describing it, I knew exactly what he was talking about, because we're 3 steps above average. That was taking Pascal's wager, and I explained it with the diagram that, okay, God exists, God doesn't exist. You accept him, you don't accept him. And Scott Firm does explain his as a cost and benefit analysis. You remember this kind of handy diagram I drew. It's using Aristotle's so you have this diagram. They have Aristotle's square of opposition there. But I'm doing it. It's like, okay, he did it as a cost-benefit, risk-rewards thing. If God exists and you accept him, he'll go to heaven. God doesn't exist and you accept him, nothing happens. God exists and you don't accept. God. Let me get that. I was doing this a little bit complex. I was doing this on the fly, and I'm not one of these people like Joe Rogan who can talk for 3 hours. You can hear my voice is already getting raspy. So, God exists and you accept him. You go to heaven. God doesn't exist and you accept him. Well, nothing happens. It's just all smoke and mirrors. God exists and you don't accept him. Your God exists and you don't accept him, well, you, according to some version of Christianity, you burn in hell. Now, I have no fear of hellfire that doesn't exist. I believe in 1 Corinthians 15, verse 29. Then you have God doesn't exist and you don't accept him as the last quadrant. Well, nothing happens. So for the most part, nothing kind of bad's happens, but the cost of being sent to hell for eternity, that kind of worked on him. This is Foxhole conversion. It's interesting, a couple of months ago, Greg Laurie, who is a Protestant minister, came to BYU and he did the same thing where he did the altar, with the altar call. So Scott Adams, he prayed the sinner's, what's called the sinner's prayer among evangelical Protestants, and that's not part of my tradition. But they have that letter that came out on January 1st, 2026, where he reaffirmed that he did accept Jesus as a Savior. And this is my comment on it. The Book of Alma says, there are many who do say, if thou wilt show unto us a sign from heaven, then we'll know of a surety, then we shall believe. And I ask, is this faith? Behold, I say unto you, nay, for if a man knoweth a thing, he hath no cause to believe, for he knoweth it. And how much more cursed is he that knoweth the will of God and doeth it not, that he that only believeth or hath cause to believe and falleth into transgression. Now this thing you must judge. Well, I say unto you that it is on the one hand even as on the other, and it shall be unto you every man according to his work. And now, as I said concerning faith, Faith is not to have a perfect knowledge of things. Therefore, if you have faith, you hope for things which are not seen, which are true. So what he's talking about is, compelling evidence to believe, force to believe. And, if you have all this evidence that God's standing before you, you're not exercising faith because you already know what's going on. And there's a continuum here of believing, exercising faith. Of course, it has to be true. You don't have to have a perfect knowledge of things because that would mean that you're omniscient, which means you'd have to be God. So, so people card stack that a bit. It's like, well, I need to have all this knowledge. Well, you can't have infinite knowledge. And the same thing is, if you think about this, Scott's not really exercising faith. He's taking a logical argument, cost-benefit analysis, which you do as an economist. That's what his master's was economics. So he's consistent with his belief, but he really wasn't exercising faith in the matter. Maybe. I'll get that to a little bit later. Saints, Teaching the Prophet Joseph Smith, page 197, we should take warning and not wait for the deathbed to repent as we see the infant taken away by death. So may the youth and middle age, as well as the infant, suddenly called into eternity. Let this then prove a warning to all, not to procrastinate repentance or wait until deathbed, for it is the will of God that man should repent and serve him in health and in the strength and power of his mind in order to secure his blessing and not wait until he's called to die. And that's the danger of deathbed repentance. You're kind of wasting your life. You can do good, but you can do more and better with the understanding of Jesus Christ. This is the Joseph Smith Manual, chapter 35. He, and this is God, God is a wise lawgiver, and he will judge all men, not according to the narrow, contracted notions of man, but according to the deeds done in the body, whether they be good or evil, whether these deeds be done in England, America, Spain, Turkey, or India. He will judge them not according to what they have not, but according to what they have. Those who have lived without law will be judged without law, and those who have a law will be judged by the law, by that law. And so to sum this up, Pascal's wager, you're not exercising faith, but just maybe the best you can do at the time. And I can't understand what timing is for people, so I'm not passing judgment on him. It's not the best. It's not according to the law of the gospel, but for him it may be the best he could do at the time. We do have Work for the Dead, 137 to 138, and there is some hope is that for him. You always pray for the best, hope for the best. But for members of the church who are endowed, this doesn't work. So always be consistent with your conversion. But again, you can't say. So it's sort of a soft criticism. This is certainly someone who is a fan and friend of him. There's no viciousness, and I'm not pronouncing judgment on him. It's just sort of describing this principle as that Pascal's wager may be the tip of the spear, but it's not going to get you to the second comforter. Just staying out there, it just isn't enough. You need more added to it. So we hope for the best for Scott. One last sip. He will be missed. It's been a bit hard for me as some of my mentors and thought leaders have passed on. Rush Limbaugh was one. Ravi Zacharias, before it came out about his indiscretions, his transgressions, he was another one. Dennis Prager is injured, and so he's sort of in recuperating. We still have the writing. Same thing with Scott Adams with his passing. It's like, okay, who do I follow now? So I've been going back to Glenn Beck and a little bit of Mike Savage. I appreciate the Jewish perspective on things, but Scott Adams, a very good thank you. I treasure your books. You're a good mentor. I have studied persuasion and hypnotism because of you. So this is the last sip for you. And that's the passing scene with the eyes of faith.